Hey friends, I want to have a conversation about the difference between people who know what a file system is on a computer and people who don't. This might be the perfect video for you because I am finding that Generation X and millennials understand what's underneath their computer, while Generation Z and younger people tend to take a lot of things for granted. Now, does this matter? Does it matter that my 17-year-old doesn't know where his files are because his iPad has hidden the file system from him? He doesn't even know what a file system is. This is a conversation that we should have, but I would propose that knowing one level what's underneath the thing that you use every day can make you slightly better at using that thing. For example, if you drive a automatic shift car, understanding how to drive a stick shift can provide a lot of value. If you know your car has tires, knowing how to change the tire has value. If your hard drive on your computer dies, knowing that that's a thing, that a hard drive is a thing, and you can replace your hard drive. Um, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not trying to keep anyone from getting involved in tech, but I am proposing that there is this funny place that we are right now where there's files in the cloud and files on my iPad and files on my phone, and then there are those that understand where those files actually are. So I'm going to have a conversation about that. It might be a little bit slower video than you're used to, but I think it's useful. Please send it to your non-technical parents and maybe your non-technical kids if you think it might be useful. All right. So when I send my family a file or my non-technical family a file, I might text it to them, use iMessage or WhatsApp, and then it just ends up in their photo stream. It ends up in their iCloud or in their Google Drive. And they may not know where those things are, and it's nice to have copies. So I'm going to show you something in Windows here. I'm going to split my screen, and I'm going to show you that on my Windows computer, if I open up the File Explorer, I have a bunch of drives that have drive letters. We have a C drive and a D drive and an E drive and an F drive. Sometimes people will ask, why does it start with C? In the old days, we had floppy disks, little portable disks, and you'd have an A drive for the big 5¼ inch floppy, and you'd have a B drive for the smaller 3-inch floppy. We don't have those drives anymore, so on Windows, things start at C. You usually don't see those because Windows tries to push you towards something called OneDrive, which is a cloud drive. If you're on a Mac, they tend to push you towards a thing called iCloud. You'll notice on my computer, I have a lot of different cloud programs. I have Adobe, I have DropBox, I have iCloud Drive, and I've got OneDrive. Here's something that's interesting. If I decide to get a file, I go to my OneDrive. Notice that Explorer here in the address bar is not telling me about C drives or D drives. It doesn't tell me where that is. And this has caused trouble with my wife and my non-technical children because they're like, well, where's the file? It's on my OneDrive. And they might want to have a copy of it, put it on a, on a USB or have a more physical copy. My parents might want to put it in a safety deposit box. So I explained these icons over here on the right to my family. You see where it says status? If something has a green circle by it, it's local and in the cloud. But if it just has a cloud, if it just has a cloud icon, it's only in the cloud. That file is not really on your computer. And that can be very confusing. Those are called on-demand files. So a fun thing that you can do if you want to drive stick shift on your computer is you can go to the Start menu. You can type Command, and you'll see this program here called Command Prompt. Older people, myself, either whether I'm an elder millennial at Generation X or maybe a young boomer, will know that as being like DOS. It's not really DOS, but it looks like DOS. So I'm going to go and click that. DOS stands for Disk Operating System. I'm going to type Command. I'm going to click on the Command Prompt, and it's going to come up with this black screen here. Again, familiar to some, but for many it's scary. It's like, wait a second, I'm used to seeing this, and now this black screen shows up. But let's talk about the relationship between these two screens. We've got our File Explorer up here that says Scott's Personal OneDrive, and then down here in the corner, we've got our DOS prompt or our command prompt. We see a C colon and then a backslash and another backslash and then a little greater than sign there. C colon users Scott. If I click up here, though, I don't know where this is. I don't know where Scott Personal is. Maybe if I click into a folder underneath that and I click again, we can reveal that it's in C, Users, Scott, OneDrive, Apps is where this particular bit of information is. If we've got some books here and some comic books, it says Scott's Personal OneDrive, Books, Comics, and it says that there's a book here about the Tuskegee Airmen that is currently in the cloud. I'm going to click right here, and you notice that it selects this text. It selects that text. It's automatically selected because I can click on it and then copy it. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. I'm going to copy that text to my clipboard. So I hit Control-C, or I can right-click and say copy. Then I can come down into my command prompt here, and I can hit Control-V, or I could right-click. And I'm going to type in CD before that. I'm going to say change directory. File folders, what we call them today, we call them file folders, were actually called directories for a very long time. So I'm going to hit CD, and now suddenly I'm in that location. I'm in C, Users, Scott, OneDrive, Books, Comics. But remember that that file up there is in the cloud. So here's where it gets interesting and squishy. I'm going to type dir, which is short for directory. Remember that folders are called directories. And I'm going to hit enter. And we're going to see something really interesting here. We're going to see a directory of the C drive. And again, these drives are physical drives. A C drive corresponds to a physical drive usually. But look at this. It's telling me that the Tuskegee book, the comic book, is 26 million bytes or 26 megabytes, but it put it in parentheses. That is an on-demand file. That file doesn't take up space on my computer. This is where non-technical mom and dad or my kids tend to fall apart. They just want to know where the thing is, okay? Now, if I right-click on this file and I say always keep on this device, I'm going to always keep this file on my device. Right-click, always keep on device. We're going to notice something interesting here. It's starting to download that file, and now it has a green circle there. Now I'm going to come back down to the bottom here, and I'm going to type dir again. And we're going to notice something happen. Look at this. Now we went from a file in parentheses to a file without parentheses. That file is on my computer now. That file is there. Now, all of this is usually hidden from you, which means that if you double-clicked on that file, regardless of whether it's in the cloud or on your computer or in both places, it would download it on demand. Those are called files on demand. And iCloud and DropBox and OneDrive and Google Drive use this feature because some of your files might be local and some of your files may not be. Why is that useful? It's usually because the cloud, which is just a fancy word for other people's computers, has a lot more space than your computer. So if you have gigabytes and gigabytes, I said megabytes before, which is 1,000,000 bytes. A gigabyte is 1,000,000,000 bytes. And I might have many, many gigabytes or even terabytes, hundreds of thousands of megabytes in the cloud. That's a lot more than my laptop or my little computer is going to support. So what they end up doing is they show me a folder filled with files that I could access, but it's an illusion. Often you'll see something like this where some of your files are in the cloud and some of your files are local. And that's fine because as long as they're there when you click on them, then you're able to do what you want to do. I like showing people this command prompt here, this command line, so that they can see the difference between these on-demand files and these ones that are not. And you'll notice that I can also right-click on it and I can say, free up space. Now, if I free up space, that's basically saying I don't mind if that file is not on my local computer. You see the cloud has appeared again. And now if I come back down here and I type dir again, it has returned to having parentheses around it. And now that file doesn't take up any space. Non-technical people tend to want to delete stuff because they think it's slowing down their computer or it's taking up space. It's more likely that it is mental clutter and it's stressing you out and you see too many things and you really just want to tidy up because you want to get your file system organized, but it's unlikely that it's really filling up your space. But if I wanted to, I could right click on books and I could have that entire directory and all the files within it kept on my device, or I could free up space. Now your menu may look slightly different. I'm using Windows 11. You might be using something else. The same thing applies to other clouds. So I'm using OneDrive. Let's go down here to Dropbox. Dropbox doesn't have the same little cloud feature, so you may not see a cloud icon in different places in Dropbox, or you may. It just kind of depends. We go in here and we look at some different files in Dropbox. Dropbox sometimes puts different icons. It can be a little bit confusing, but I can go and click again. I'm going to hit Control C, or I'm going to right click and say copy. So now I'm on C Dropbox, and then I'm going to folder for my podcast. And I'm going to type CD, and then I'm going to paste in change directory. I'm going to go now to the Dropbox Hanselman folder. And I'm going to look here and look, all of these files are not really there. That's how much space they would take up if they were really there. And if I double click on them, Dropbox will get those files on demand. So those files look like they're on my computer, but they're not really. That's really interesting. If I double click on one of them, the file will then be downloaded, and then I can see this file that I just downloaded. Whether or not Dropbox chooses to keep that file on my local computer is really up to Dropbox. It might just download it temporarily. Again, I can right click on these and do different stuff. So for example, with Dropbox, I can say, is this online only or offline? I can view it in the cloud. And that can be really interesting because if I want to view these in the cloud, I'll say Dropbox, view in Dropbox. We're going to end up on the Dropbox website. And this can be confusing because look, here we are at dropbox.com looking at this file. The file's called Hanselman add, and the file's called Hanselman add down here. Is that the real file? That's a preview of the file as shown by the Dropbox website. Understanding those things can be a little bit confusing. You might want to download it, but it's actually already here. You might click open in. If I'm opening from the website, it might go and open in a web application. But if I come over to this application and I say open with, I could open it with local programs like Photoshop that I have installed on my computer. This concept of having a file in the cloud versus having a file locally gets even more confusing when you apply something like iCloud. So here's on my Windows computer, my Apple iCloud drive. Now this one's really interesting. Look at this. I'm seeing folders like GarageBand, games that I've installed, numbers and pages, which are all applications that Windows doesn't have. Windows doesn't know about those. So where are these files from? We can see some of them are local and some of them are not. We can also go to desktop and I can see, look at that, some files on my desktop. But what desktop? What is iCloud Drive desktop? Well, I also have a Mac. And the Mac keeps the files from the desktop locally on your desktop and also in the cloud. And because I installed the iCloud application on Windows, here I am looking at a projection of what's on my desktop. So if I put a file here on Windows in iCloud Drive desktop, it will appear on my Mac in the desktop. I can click again up at the top, and this is interesting. Those files are located on iCloud Drive desktop. Once again, I'm going to click that. I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to go over to my prompt. We're going to go to the D drive, and I'm going to say CD D drive. And I'm going to see something interesting. Once again, some of those files are in parentheses. They're not really there. It's just a placeholder. And some of those files are in fact there. Isn't that interesting? Check this out. I'm going to do something tricky here. I'm actually going to bring this application over, which is going to allow me to show you on my iPhone what's going on with my iPhone. So I'm projecting my iPhone over to my computer. So here's my iPhone. We're going to use a tool called Air Server, and I'm just going to bring up my phone here. So look here. I'm in the Files app on my iPhone, and you see that iCloud Drive appears there. And I can click on it and click on Desktop, and there are those same files. But again, look at that right-hand side. You see how they have download buttons? Some of them are available and some of them are not available. I click on a picture of my grandparents. Is that file on the local computer, on the local phone? It is, because it doesn't have a cloud icon by it. I could go and send it to a family member. Okay. We can also go and see if that file of my grandparents is here. I'm on Windows now. We'll click on that file and we'll double click on it, and there's that same file. Okay. In multiple places at once. Understanding how you can move files around, and are you copying links to files or files themselves, can be really, really useful. And a little bit, just a little bit of understanding about what's called the command line or the terminal can provide a lot of value. The last thing I want to show you is, let's say if we decided to go over to Google Spreadsheets. I tend to see this a lot with my kids and my older parents. They'll go and they'll Google, maybe they Google with Bing, and they'll Google for something like Gmail, right? They'll go Google Gmail. They'll end up on a search page and then click on the link. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. My kids will go Google Spreadsheet, thinking that they're navigating to Google Spreadsheets, and then they see the link for it, and then they sign in. That's also fine. But here, if we're looking at, for example, a Google spreadsheet, where's this file? Where is this file? Well, this is a web page in the cloud with a complicated URL, a uniform resource locator, or what you would just call a link. I could share it with you. I could go and share the weekly timesheet with you, or I could come here to File and I could say Download. It's this moment when we download something that it becomes, real physical. We're going to download actual files and we're going to put them somewhere. At this point, though, it's a copy. It's not truly a live document that other people could share and work on. But when I go and say File, Download, Excel, in this case, it's going to say, what do you want to do? Open it or save as? I'm going to say Save as. And then it's going to want to put it somewhere. Maybe it'll put it in my Downloads folder. But I can choose to put it on any of my drives, C, D, etc., or on the cloud as well. So I could save it to my iCloud downloads. Okay, so I'm making a copy of a Google Sheet. It's now an Excel format, so we've changed the format, and I'm copying it into my iCloud drive. Okay, so I just saved that. Let's go back to our little iCloud device here. And let's see where that file is. There it is. Look, weekly timesheet just showed up, but it's not on my phone yet because I haven't downloaded it. I can click on that, and then I've opened it now in Excel, in Office, right? So now I have a copy of it here. Is that the smartest thing to do? Yeah, probably not. But it is interesting. It is interesting because it gives me a lot of control and a lot of flexibility. Maybe the best thing for me to do would be to have someone install Google Sheets. We stay in the Google Sheets world, the Google Sheets, what they call ecosystem. But being able to make copies of files, to understand how they can move from place to place, whether it be from Mac to Windows to iPhone to Android, between OneDrive, DropBox, iCloud, Google Drive, gives you a lot of power. So you don't have to go and worry about these being locked in to a particular cloud. I can double click on that file now. I can open it up in Excel on my local machine. What this is a Google Sheet converted into an Excel. It's now in my iCloud drive. I'm making those changes. I can close it, save that. It's going to then be synchronized, and those changes are now available elsewhere. The last thing I wanted to point out is that you might have a local cloud. I have a server in my house here that is another computer. A server usually just means a computer without a monitor. So here I have a computer that's called server. That's a local cloud. Remember, clouds are just other people's computers. In this case, server is my computer in a closet. So if the house burns down, we grab that computer and we run, and that's our cloud. So if you really want to have your software, your files, your photos, your family memories backed up, you're going to want to have what's called the backup rule of 3. You're going to want to have 3 copies in 2 different formats, right? So I've got 3 different copies. I got one here and one there and one in the cloud in 2 different formats. And actually, you know, here I am trying to tell you about the backup rule of 3, and I'm forgetting it. I actually wrote a blog post about it. There we go. Forgot what number 1 was. 3 copies in 2 formats and 1 off-site. That's the backup rule of 3. So if I have some family photos, I'm going to have 3 different versions of that. I'm going to have maybe a hard drive, I'm going to have it in DropBox, and I'm going to have it on a CD, or I'm going to have a DVD that I'll put at the safety deposit box. Or maybe just a second USB key. You have your family photos here, and then you have another USB that you give to your parents or you give to your family members, and they hang on to it. This is a really important thing because you could lose access to your cloud files at any time. I might lose access to my OneDrive or my Dropbox or my Google. I would like to have those files available to me, but you're much less likely to lose access to files that are yours. So these files here that represent my podcast, my Hansel Minutes podcast, it's super important that I keep access to those files. So having local versions really matters to me. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of a sense about how to move your files from local to the cloud and back, and also the flexibility that offers. But I want you to remember that your phone is lying to you about what's really on your phone. Much of it's just what you're viewing in the cloud that's farther away from you. And your Windows machine and your Mac may also be lying to you. So if you really, really, really want your files to be local, it'll take up more disk space. You can click on them and say, I want it always on my computer. That's one option. But just being conscious of that, I think, will provide a lot of value. Please let me know in the comments if you want to learn more, if this video was useful to you or useless. You can certainly help me out by sharing this video and other videos that I've done with your family, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thanks.